Hi, it's Marianne. This podcast is the replay of a virtual event in partnership with Kensington Senior Living. You'll hear from two authors living with dementia and a former caregiver who share their experiences weathering the storms and unexpected challenges dementia brings to daily life. Susan Evans joins me as host. Welcome to the Authors podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Marianne Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, OWLS author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
My name is Andrea Kuchar, ALS Authors member and author of the memoir, Embracing What Remains. I am excited to be one of the moderators of a new online book club, collaborating with the wonderful organization, Aging and Amazing. Every month, we will feature a book from the ALS Authors approved collection. At the end of the month, we will meet online and host a group discussion of the book, as well as invite the author to join us for a question and answer session. Please know it's not a requirement to have read the book to be a part of the discussion. Our goal is to simply share and open a conversation on a topic that is so important for the aging community. This is a wonderful opportunity to share our stories, connect with readers across the globe, and shine a little light on the effects of Alzheimer's and dementia in our families and communities. ALS Authors strives to help others through this journey and remind those on this path that they are not alone.
For more information, go to agingamazing.com or check out the show notes for this episode of Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. Thank you.
Good afternoon or evening, and welcome. Kensington Senior Living has 7 unique communities, 4 located in Virginia, Maryland, and New York, and 3 sister communities located in California. We are truly privileged to support care partners and professionals from coast to coast. Kensington focuses on relationship-based care built on the foundation of our promise to love and care for your family as we do our own. That promise was what initially drew me to become a member of the Kensington family, as my father lived at Kensington Senior Living for almost 7 years. It is programs such as ones you're attending now that are so important to us walking through a caregiving journey, and to hear from these experts on keeping us current with advances in care management and treatment of conditions that affect our families. You are in for a treat today with ALS Authors. You will meet authors that will share their journey and story with Alzheimer's. They are smart, they are emotional, and they will share with you any tips that they have. I can't thank them enough for joining us today. And I cannot thank Marianne enough, the founder of ALS Authors, who has become such an incredible partner with Kensington Senior Living. Marianne, can you please join me?
Absolutely.
Hello, Sue, and hello, everyone. I'm Marianne, and thank you for sharing your precious time with us. I am a founder of allsauthors.com. We are the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. And our mission is to break the silence and stigma that often surrounds a dementia diagnosis by sharing quality books, blogs, podcasts, and films with caregivers and others who are looking for knowledge, comfort, and support. I'm also a registered nurse and have worked with hundreds of families on a dementia journey and had my own journey with my stepfather. I'm the author of a novel, Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story, inspired by couples I met in my work.
And Marianne, just quickly, when did you found All's Authors and how many authors do you have now?
We founded All's Authors in 2015. There were 3 of us, and now we have over 350 authors in our collaborative. So we're really proud about that.
You should be proud about that. Well, let's go ahead and get on with the show, Marianne.
Okay, I would like to bring on Dr. Daniel Gibbs.
Hi there.
Good to see you again. So
if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and about your book, that would be great.
I'd be happy to. I'm a 72-year-old retired neurologist. I also have Alzheimer's disease. In hindsight, my first symptoms of Alzheimer's occurred in 2006 when I started to lose my sense of smell. In 2012, I inadvertently learned that I have 2 copies of the ApoE4 allele while doing DNA testing for genealogical purposes. That gave me a very high chance of having a diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia by the time I was 80 and a 50% chance by the time I was 70. I retired a year later in 2013, even though I was still cognitively normal at the time. And I began to volunteer for a total of 8 clinical studies in the years to come, including an ongoing neuroimaging study that tracks the advancement of the disease in my brain with amyloid and tau PET scans, MRI scans, and cognitive tests. My Alzheimer's is progressing very slowly, and that supports the growing body of evidence that lifestyle modifications can be beneficial in slowing the progression of the disease. I can't work as a neurologist anymore, but as my wife Lois says, I've taken on a second career by writing and speaking about what we can do about managing Alzheimer's disease.
Wonderful.
I can't thank you enough for sharing with us and our audience. And it's really encouraging. As you know, my father passed away from Alzheimer's. And when you have Alzheimer's in your family, you know, the hereditary risk, you always are concerned. And I think the tip you just gave the audience about lifestyle, and I know you're going to share a little bit more about that, but I really do think that it can make a difference. And I'm so encouraged to hear you say that you feel it does.
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank
you
you
want
so
to just
much.
share real quickly the lifestyle so we don't forget that for the audience? The lifestyle
now I have to remember, you'll have to remind me if I forget any.
I'll try.
The evidence is based for exercise. So, getting your 10,000 steps, and that actually seems to be a pretty good number. Getting more than that doesn't seem to add much. But if that seems like too much, even 3,000 steps seems to have an effect as well, just not as robust. The next lifestyle change that has very good data for it now is diet. And following a Mediterranean style diet, I follow the MIND diet, which is a variant of that. And once you get used to it, it's really it's not that hard to do. I mean, I didn't have a hard time giving up the red meats. And the one thing I had trouble with was cheese, because in the MIND diet, you're only allowed 1 serving a week of cheese. And I failed that because I really love cheese. And then about a year ago, I developed lactose intolerance. And so the cheese was out, and now I'm 100% compliant on the MIND diet. The next items are keeping socially active and intellectually active. And That's kind of a no-brainer, but the data is very good for that. And you want to keep developing new connections in your brain. So learning something new seems to be better than, there's been a bit of a controversy about crossword puzzles. Frankly, I think crossword puzzles are great because I enjoy doing them. But what I try to do, particularly on the harder ones as the week goes on, is I look up things I don't know, like the lake in Africa or something like that. So I'm trying to create some new connections in my brain. The next one, and this is an item that the data has been relatively recent in coming within the last 10 years, and that is getting adequate sleep. And getting less than 7.5 hours of sleep per night increases the risk and the rate of progression of Alzheimer's. Interestingly, getting more than 9 hours of sleep also increases the risk. So there's a sweet spot somewhere between 7.5 and 9 hours. And of course, that's hard to do when you have Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's interferes with sleep patterns. So you just got to do the best you can. And then finally, managing the cardiovascular risk factors is really, really important because what's good for the brain is what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So managing hypertension, hyperlipidemia, too many lipids in the blood, and things like that are really important. Diabetes, I think I already mentioned. Did I miss anything? I think that's...
I think you're spot on, and what's good for the heart is good for the head. But I agree with you. Cheese was the hardest thing to give up. I love my cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'd like to introduce Gerda Saunders. Who is Gerda? Hi, Gerda, and her husband, Peter.
Hi.
Peter's my caregiver, helping me to press the right buttons here.
Yes. Yeah. Gerda, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey.
The first thing that you hear about me is that I have an immigrant accent, and Peter and I and our 2 children emigrated from South Africa in 1984, and I've been living in Utah ever since then. And in South Africa, Peter and I met each other when we were at the University of Pretoria together studying science, and we had some of the same classes, science and chemistry and physics. So I taught in South Africa in that, but then when I came here, I was able to go to the university and do a PhD in English. So that's where I'd always liked to write, but that's where I got more of the craft of doing that. And then I want to tell you a little bit. So I taught in gender studies and in English at the University of Utah. So my mother had Alzheimer's. So she had microvascular disease. But when my memory started really going bad, when even in my late 50s, I didn't have to think long to think that, I'll probably have dementia. But I spoke to our family about it, but not to anybody else. And then I had an event, two kinds of events at work that made me feel that I should take care of this and most probably have to retire. And the first was when I was in a meeting of the Women's Week Committee that I chaired. And we sort of started the meeting and I had an agenda and everything. And then sort of a little bit into the meeting, I just spaced out. And I sort of didn't hear the voices or anything. And then when I sort of came back again, then I had no idea where we were in the agenda, and the person had just finished speaking. And so I looked at my agenda, and the first thing my eyes fell on was introductions. So I said, why don't we introduce ourselves? And the minute I said that, I realized that we'd already done that. So that was one of a clear sign for me that I did not do that again. My teaching also had trouble, but at home, we had the whole family for brunch one day, and I'd made the casserole and everything the night before. I had the table set, everything. When the kids sat down and the grandkids were hungry, I looked in the oven, there was no casserole, and I'd forgotten to bake it that morning. So I had a quiet, weepy tantrum, and the kids did everything. But those were the kinds of things that happened. So I was diagnosed with microvascular disease at the age of 61. And then I wrote a journal. The faculty gave me a lovely leather-bound style journal, and I wrote about my dementia in there. And from the journal, the book came. I wrote about, I had excerpts from the journal, but I wrote about my, it was a memoir, so it covered sort of all areas of my life. And I spoke about the life changes that happened in each. And so that dementia is not its own thing. I mean, you undergo a radical perspective change when you fall in love the first time, when you get married, when you have your first child, when you emigrate. You live in different worlds. So anyway, it was, I examined all that through the lens of dementia. And so I wrote about my failures and my feelings about them. And then I want to tell you, I wrote it because also to be able to talk about it to people, so it's not such a secret. And also I did research on the brain, and I wrote the book because I feel the more you know, the better you could love.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And I would like to bring on Jane Dwinell. Now, make sure I said that right.
You did.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to welcome you. And if you could tell us about your story, which is different because you were the caregiver.
That's right. Good evening, everyone. Well, it's evening here. I'm speaking to you from northern Vermont on the Quebec border. And I am the co-author with my late husband, Sky Yardley, of Alzheimer's Canyon, One Couple's Reflections on Living with Dementia. He died almost 3 years ago. He had both Lewy body dementia and Alzheimer's that was discovered on autopsy, which is extremely rare to have both equally and extensively. When he was diagnosed in 2016 at the age of 66 and in otherwise perfect health with no family history, he said two things. He said, I need to find my people. He wanted to talk with other people who had dementia. And he said, I'm going to do what I can to erase the stigma of this disease. He dove into reading every book he could possibly find about Alzheimer's and other dementias. And then he began to write. And he wrote to, as he said, to make sense of what was happening to him. After a little while, we started a blog, and then we went on a nationwide speaking tour. I was a retired Unitarian Universalist minister, and so we developed a sermon and gave it at congregations, both Unitarian Universalist and United Church of Christ across the country for a year until he was not able to anymore. His first symptoms were that he lost his spatial ability. When I first met him, he was a produce delivery driver who drove a big truck and who could back it into any little teeny tiny space. We were both water lovers and had a variety of boats. And all of a sudden he couldn't dock a boat or back up a boat. And he blamed the wind and not any other problem. We were also amateur carpenters. We had built 6 houses for ourselves, and we had volunteered in New Orleans after Katrina, helping people rebuild. And all of a sudden, he couldn't do carpentry work. It didn't make any sense to him. And that's when he realized he needed to get tested. And so he did. And then he just went off on this journey of, I'm going to do what I can about this to erase the stigma of dementia.
I applaud all of you. My journey is similar to yours. With my dad I was on a mission to educate and to bring people together, because the journey of a caregiver, and all of you are so lucky, and your late husband, Jane, is so lucky that he had you. And I heard about Lois, Dan, but I haven't met her yet. And I know Peter down there is an unbelievable caregiver and spouse. And really, my journey was the same, is to educate and let people know to take the stigma away, because it's a horrible, horrible journey. And I just can't thank you all for being here. I just can't thank you enough. Go ahead, Marianne.
That's great. Thank you. And I mean, everybody on the screen is just so remarkable, extraordinary people, and have had such incredible lives, and all of that you've accomplished. It's just really wonderful. I had mentioned my journey was with my stepfather. Prior to that, I had several of my aunts who had dementia as well, but I was aware of them, but not responsible for them. I wasn't a caregiver, so a lot of it escaped me. And then I became a nurse, and that was my thing at work, is helping families through dementia and helping them to find supports in the community and all of that. So I had already written my book when my stepfather was diagnosed. And suddenly I had to take everything that I knew professionally and put it into practice for myself. And that's not an easy thing to do. And Dan probably knows that too. It's like everything I knew kind of went out the window, because now it was somebody that I care about, it wasn't a stranger. And I couldn't be objective. But I realized I needed to put my nursing cap on and come up, what would I tell this person to do if they were not my family? They were just a patient. So that's how I ended up working through that. So we have a lot of information and experience here for this journey right now to offer everybody. One of the things we wanted to talk about is a very intriguing topic, and it's about how you navigate your days with dementia. And we were wondering what kind of tools that you use, and if you use any tools that are technology-based or maybe artificial intelligence. I think Gerda does that. Can you maybe talk about that, Gerda?
Oh, yes, I can. I have to say I check out on the technology totally. If Peter weren't here, I wouldn't have a phone or a computer or anything. So, but I do have still paper and pen tools and just idea tools. And my first kind of advice is make your life as small as you want it to be. Of course, it's with your spouse and everything, but we've had to reduce our formerly prolific social life to literally, we have 4 sets of friends that we visit, and we have a family of 10. And we don't go to social events other than that. I cannot go to a restaurant. I cannot follow a conversation of, if we have friends, 4 people around the table, they all know to speak one at a time. Else I cannot follow the conversation. And the people closest to you will totally be happy to do that. And the people not close to you will probably not notice. So that is my first thing. And then the second one is there's a daily lack of motivation and apathy and depression and anxiety, which are sort of hallmarks of various dementias. And I sort of have all 3 of those. So my whole day I would just sit and be miserable if I didn't have the tool of a list. So I make a list. Usually I make a list for Monday, but then that list usually lasts me a whole week to go through because I'm so slow. And I put the tasks on there and I really make myself do them. Some days I have to promise myself coffee or something in order just to get out of bed. But then I still believe in that promise. So I go through the day doing the household tasks and everything. And I, as you know, that any kind of small success gives you endorphins, and then you do start feeling better, except on some days when you make a mistake every few minutes, and that happens to me sadly too often. I just start out making coffee and then I break the coffee maker, or drop something, glass all over the floor. So on days like that, when it happens one after the other, after the other, after the other, I get really, I don't even think of it as depressed because there are reasons for why I feel so bad. So anyway, I have to follow that routine. And then if I can't anymore, pull yourself out of everything and go have a nap or walk, whatever works for you. So, and the last thing I want to say is that Peter and I listened to a talk by B.J. Miller, and he's the physician who at age 17 lost an arm and two legs. And he's told about how he was in a burn center in the hospital, and it was snowing outside, but he couldn't even see it because the room had no windows, but the nurses told him. And then after a while, one of them came back with just snow in a cupped hands. And he said he touched that snow, and that connection with the outside world, and for him it was a connection with the universe. He said that made him, enabled him to go on with his life. So I prescribe one great pleasure every day if you can do it. And mine is very shallow and very mundane because Peter and I have dessert every night. And I some days live for that dessert.
I'm going to try to speak, but I love the small motivation that you set your sight on. And if it's to get out of bed because you want your coffee, I think that is absolutely magic. And I love that you need and that you understand. And I'd love to hear from Jane and Dan as well, that you make a list because it gives you purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just so important. And I also love, they say you only need 5 friends, and that's a lot. But I love that you have figured that out and that they understand, how not to overwhelm, but to be there to support. And I think that's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
Skye's experience was exactly the opposite. That's the difference of this disease, is you never know how it's going to handle. For Skye, he had no depression. He completely embraced this and went with it. He became more social. We were not a very social couple at all. And he was like, I want to go be with people. And he volunteered at 3 different organizations because he just wanted to be with people. He was not worried about conversations or distractions or anything. And it was really good that he did that because we lost most of our friends, which is a very sad side effect of this disease. People were like, oh, Alzheimer's, huh? Okay, bye. Two of my close women friends happened to visit me about a month after his diagnosis at the same time. They both happened to drop in and they both said, what can we do for you? And I said, well, we could go out for lunch once a month or so. And one woman, we're still going out for lunch once a month. And the other woman, I never saw her again until 6 months after Skye died.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's what we have to change here.
Yeah.
You just nailed it. And that is, there is a fear of this disease and a fear of helping out. And really, there's nothing wrong that can be done. And everybody's symptoms are different. And you just need to be supportive and understand that. And I thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And even he has had three sisters, and two of them disappeared and the other one hung in. So, you just don't ever know. And you have to go with the flow. I mean, that's the whole point of this disease, is that there isn't a pattern. It's not the same for everybody. One of the things that I wrote is called Expect the Unexpected. Like you gotta pinch hit, and every day it's going to be something different. We never use technology, but I did get a whiteboard at one point to write down the date and all the activities that were happening. Because I noticed I would go to the calendar and stare at the calendar. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we need a little bigger here. And then I would erase after whatever it was happened. And he rode his bike. The thing that brought him peace besides working was riding his bike. He would go ride his bike for hours. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry, Dan should have a turn.
Yeah, I really second Gerda's experiences. I don't do well in groups anymore, and I cannot at all handle it when there's more than one conversation going at the same time, like at a big family dinner or something like that. And if that's the case, I mean, I'd love to have the family there, but I just have to tune it out because I can't sort out the words. One of the things you lose in Alzheimer's is early on, in many cases, in most cases, is verbal memory. And what I've noticed that I can't do anymore is to figure out words from context. So if I only hear, if Lois, my wife, starts to say something and I don't hear the first couple of words, I have no idea what she said. And so she will often just repeat the sentence before I just to make sure I've got it. So that I still enjoy, getting together with family and with one-on-one with friends. But on the other hand, I'm very aggressive about sharing my diagnosis with just about anybody. So everyone in the neighborhood knows it, and they're all interested. Most of them have read the book. Some of them have seen the documentary that just came out. And I actually had a stranger to me come up while Lois and I were walking our dog last week and introduced himself and said, I just saw your documentary and that was really great. And I thought, how could he have done that? And it turned out that we know his wife, at least I know his wife. I didn't know him. And she had been on him because she was sure that he had early Alzheimer's and kind of made him watch the film. So that was interesting. Shifting gears just a little bit back to what I find is helpful with my day-to-day activities is to schedule my exercise before I want to do something creative. So if I'm thinking I'm going to write something later on, I don't just write it now. I wait till I've had my 10,000 steps with Jack, the dog. And it really makes it easier. And there's data to support that. Exercise clearly causes a long-term benefit in slowing the progression of Alzheimer's, but it also has an acute effect that lasts a few hours, so that at least I'm a little sharper, and there's data to support that otherwise, that you get a little boost in your cognitive abilities that's transient, and you can, if you can, time it to work out with something you need your brains for, exercise first. And let's see, there was one other comment I was going to... Well, that's it. I can't remember what else I was going to say.
Dan, how do you track your steps?
Oh, with it, Apple Watch. Yeah.
Okay. The Apple Watch.
An Apple Watch, you can track a lot of things on your Apple Watch. asking, what tools you need. An Apple Watch is pretty simple, and it can also be a security thing where you can actually, I'm not sure how to use it, but you can tap, like if you have a fall or you need help, because my mother has one just for that, and you can track your steps, and I believe you can track your sleep. So, and your heart rate, what's good for your heart, it's good for your head. Thank you for that.
The falls, mine is just a little too sensitive because one of my chores is clearing the slope behind our house. And it involves a lot of hacking and sawing. And sometimes I'll get this flashing red light and saying, "You've had a fall. Do you need assistance?" And I haven't had a fall. I just was jerking my arm too much.
Okay.
So sometimes the Apple Watch doesn't quite know what it's talking about.
Okay. Hey, better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
I've had other authors in other discussions talk about using things like the Apple Watch and the iPhone or a cell phone, smartphone, or Alexa to help them manage their day. And they really, like, Alexa can be really helpful because you can just ask Alexa to do so many different things. One of the authors said she likes to listen to an audiobook, so she'll just tell Alexa to start the story and it picks up right where it left off. And you can use it for timer, for reminders, have it set to go off every day at like 12 p.m. when you need to take your medication. So there are just a lot of different things that you can do with these kind of devices. So we just recommend that people explore it and not to be afraid.
You just gave a boost to Amazon.
Yeah, well, yeah. You can see I have my little Apple earbuds and all of that. Apple iPhone. The next thing I wanted to explore a little bit is you mentioned it, family, and how does your family support you? Who wants to go first?
I can.
Okay.
The way our family supported Sky's journey was our son and his partner approached us before Sky was diagnosed, but I knew what was coming because I was a nurse, who had worked in a memory care facility. So I knew what was going on. And our son and his partner happened to approach us saying, we'd like to buy a house, but we can't afford it. Would you like to buy a duplex with us? And I was like, that sounds like a fabulous idea. Yes, please. We would buy a duplex with you. And so we did. And, it's not a great idea to keep moving when you have dementia. But it worked for us. We lived in the duplex. We were downstairs in a fully accessible unit, and our son and his partner was upstairs. And we didn't, it wasn't like we spent every day together, but we would, while Sky could still play games, we were big bridge players. We'd play games in the evening. We'd eat together. Our son was a chef, so it was very handy. He
goodness.
And our daughter lived 40 minutes away, so she would come once a week. And she and Sky had always loved hiking. They had hiked the long trail in Vermont together, and so they would often go hiking as long as he could. And then he got to a point where he couldn't. So that was, we had the two kids, and so they were the ones who were supportive. And Sky's one sister who was supportive, who lived out of state, but she called him at least once a week, and they were very close and talked on the phone. And so I was forever grateful for our children. And we were a family who talked about, it helped that I had been a nurse and a member of the clergy. So talking about death was not like a big deal for us. So we were very clear after Sky got diagnosed, did all the paperwork, had all the conversations. And so everybody was on board, and we really worked together, and bless their hearts. They were wonderful. Loved them so much.
That's terrific. What about you, Dan?
Well, we have 3 children, and 2 of them and their families live in Portland. So that is great. We see them all the time, and the grandchildren. We pick up at school 2 days a week, and our other daughter lives in Corvallis, which is about an hour and a half away. And so we don't see her child as much, Isaac, who's 1.5. but we connect by whatever you call it, Zoom or FaceTime.
FaceTime.
Yeah, almost every day. So the kids and our grandkids are very involved. Now there's kind of an interesting twist. It's not unique by any means, but because I have 2 copies of the ApoE4 allele, that means that all of my children have at least 1 copy. So they're all at risk, greater risk than normal for getting Alzheimer's, although they may only have 1. And if you have 1, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have Alzheimer's, but it just means an increased risk. But they're all sensitized to that. And I think that's great because, one of the things I'm trying to get out with my talking and my writing is to recognize risk for Alzheimer's earlier in life when lifestyle changes and perhaps new medications will be most effective. If you wait till the end stage of Alzheimer's dementia, it's really too late. And so there are already a number of studies underway looking at a variety of things, including new drugs in people who don't have cognitive impairment yet, but who are on the Alzheimer's arc. And we know that because they've got positive biomarkers for amyloid and or tau. So these are the sort of things that my children's generation needs to think about participating in and being sensitized to. And at least my kids are. And I'm trying to get the message out to, in general, to start thinking about if there's a family history of Alzheimer's, then I encourage people to start looking into modifying risk factors by midlife and consider joining a study. I love being part of the studies, and I encourage people to do that.
I agree 100%. The more people that participate in the studies, the more accurate we can figure out some type of an antidote. I don't know if there'll be a cure, but some type of an antidote for those that are more susceptible to any type of these brain diseases. Last but not least, the couple that's together.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, I don't have to do anything other than point. But my children too, I have 2 children, and they both have spouses and family. And they are at the peak of building their careers, while my daughter is, and my son, as a most incredibly life-balanced person I've ever known. And he chooses his work hours. He honestly, at least once a month, the whole family goes on some outdoor hiking adventure. And so I want them to do those things they're into. So we ask minimal practical help from them, but they're fully informed on what's going on with us, and they're always there to help if we need it. Anyway, so the biggest gift they've given us is to participate in our advanced directive planning and in our doing our last will and testament and all those things. We invited them all to come to the lawyer with us, so they know our finances, so that if they have to suddenly take over, if anything happens to Peter, I am lost. And so they are informed of what's going on, and they always on standby for us for anything like that.
Peter's not going anywhere.
I'm
looking at him right there. He's looking at you with the most loving eyes ever.
Yeah. Well, Peter and I have this thing that we talk about all the time, and that is when we find each other lying on the kitchen floor, not, in some kind of a stupid state where we can't be awakened. And so we talk about it all the time. And I always say to him, you're not allowed to land on the kitchen floor before.
I think that's a good plan. Marianne, why don't we take it? Why don't we hear from them, reading a little bit from their books?
Yes, absolutely.
I think the audience would love that. So go ahead.
Who would like to go first? Read a little bit from your book.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm going to bend the rules a little bit and read a chapter from my next book, which is coming out in March.
But also share a little bit about the documentary too.
Okay. Right. Let me read the one thing at a time.
Okay.
Multitasking doesn't do well. Okay. This is actually the last chapter of that book, which is a book of essays that I've written about Alzheimer's disease over the last couple of years. And I put them together in a collection of essays. So this one's called Living in the Moment with Alzheimer's. When we are young, the timeline of our lives stretches from our earliest memories to our expectations for the future. As the cognitive impairment of Alzheimer's disease progresses, that timeline begins to constrict. Perhaps surprisingly, the first memories that start to go are the most recent. Where did I put that? Fill in the blank. The consolidation of new memories in the hippocampus is impaired, while our ability to remember events from the distant past is relatively well preserved in a variety of cortical regions of the brain. As time goes on and the amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles spread throughout the brain, the distant memories start to fade. The memories most likely to endure are those that were associated with strong emotional content, but eventually even those start to disappear. At the same time, our abilities to look into the future, make plans become impaired as damage spreads to the prefrontal cortex. Eventually, in the late stages of Alzheimer's, we're left with life in the present, no past and no future. I'm not there yet, but I can sense the shrinking timeline of memories from the past and plans for the future. For those of us on the Alzheimer's journey, it is really important to embrace the moment and not dwell on the frustration of trying to remember the past and plan for the future. Others can help us retrieve old memories. Calendars, lists, and Post-it notes will help us minimize the chaos of the future. But happiness and peace come from focusing on the moment, whether it is hugging a grandchild, writing in a journal, working in the garden, or listening to great music. As Horace put it over 2,000 years ago, seize the day and don't worry about tomorrow.
Lovely. That's lovely.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And you know what? For our audience, what better advice can you give the families and the caregivers for people than exactly what Dan just said? That was the hardest thing for me to see with my dad's progression it's so hard to have a conversation because there was no past to talk about a memory and there was no future to talk about, we're going to have so much fun at the lake this weekend. Mm-hmm. So it was always in the moment, but put a smile on and seize that moment, I think is the best advice you can give anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gerda, can you go next? Unmute.
Okay, sure. Well, I have made an executive decision that I'm not going to read from my book because it was 7 years ago and I've written a lot since that on my blog post and in the documentary that PBS made. But anyway, I have asked Peter to read a beautiful letter he wrote me just before Thanksgiving. We've always been letter writers and we always write, on birthdays or so, we always write each other a letter. We don't give physical gifts. But and my excuse is that I actually broke my radius 2 days ago. And I only have an appointment with a doctor with an orthopedic doctor on Monday. So with all that happening, I just did not have time to prepare anything from a book. I'm too slow. But anyway, I'd love for you to read that, Peter.
Okay, so just so that you know, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author.
He's an incredible.
But anyway, here's my letter to Gerda. My dearest Gertie, at physical therapy today, a woman in a wheelchair, about 40, nicely dressed, shiny hair, hands in lap, blocked the aisle. As I tried to go around, she blew into a tube, wheeled back to give me room. I tried to visualize her everyday struggles, getting out of bed, making coffee, or going to doctor like today. Then, of course, I thought of you, my darling. Yesterday, you dropped your wine glass and later your soup bowl. You forgot the squash in the 40-degree oven.
400.
For your mall walking, you forgot your cane. You set out with your wide-legged stride for balance. A minute later, you called. The flashlight on your phone had come on. Could I come help you turn it off? Back at the car, there was your cane next to your seat. At home, you forgot how to log on to doctor's website. At dinner, we clinked our wine glasses twice because you'd forgot we toasted 5 minutes earlier. I see you cringe at each failure. I try to give the appearance that this is just our life and help where I can. I could say something every time, give you a hug or make an encouraging comment, but it seems that what I do causes you less stress. Inside, I cry a little every time. When it gets too much for you, I hold you and wipe your tears. If a different way of showing that I see you would work better, please tell me. Most people have no idea that you have overwhelming mental hurdles every hour, every day. When rested, you still socialize as elegantly. Others only see your often dramatic sense of fashion and sparkling personality. They read your blog, which is like an angel wrote it. Your behind-the-scenes life is a metaphor that only our dark, humid family knows will make you laugh. You are my Black Knight, as in Monty Python. King Arthur is your dementia. When it chops off the Black Knight's arm, the knight says, "'Tis just a scratch." When the second arm goes, just a flesh wound. When Arthur lops off both legs, the knight shouts, "Come here, I'll bite your legs off." My beloved Black Knight, you have the courage and determination of a medieval army. I admire you so much. I just adore you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love you guys.
I disagree. I think you can write.
Incredible.
That's wonderful.
I laughed until I cried. A bad day, and then my depression went away.
I'm so glad.
That's wonderful. Jane?
Wow, it's going to be hard to follow that.
Oh, come on, Jane.
I'm going to try. Okay, here we go. This piece is written by Sky, and it's called Rain Hat. For a couple of months now, I've been sporting this hat knitted by Jane. Every day I get comments. "Hey, that looks like a brain. Love your hat, man." And my favorite so far, "Your brain is showing." Most comments toss the ball back into my court, giving me an opportunity to respond. Do I laugh and keep going? Do I stop and chat? The hat is a pretty good indicator of how strong and confident and engaged I'm feeling. In fact, the hat has opened up some very interesting conversations. At the very least, it's good for eye contact and a good laugh. Once, feeling strong, I responded, "Actually, it's my Alzheimer's hat. I've recently learned that I have Alzheimer's, and the hat is giving my brain support." Then the other person grins and says, "My wife has Alzheimer's. She's at home. Would you like to see a picture of her?" "Of course." "See, she's very happy." "Wow, she looks it," I say. And she really does. Something about her eyes convey to me a presence, a steady strength that's hard to describe in words. Could this be the bond of the demented? 10 minutes later, I'm getting another like for my hat. Energized, I repeat the line that works so well. "Actually, it's my Alzheimer's hat. I recently learned that I have Alzheimer's, and the hat is giving my brain support." This time, before I can finish my sentence, my liker is staring at her shoes, muttering, interesting, and then barrels off down the sidewalk without a backward glance.
Wow.
Lovely.
I
love that.
I cannot wait to read all of your books.
They're wonderful.
All of your books. And before I forget, we've had a couple questions. Dan, the name of your documentary, and I will remind the audience that we will send links to all of that to everyone. But Dan, if you could just share the name of your documentary.
The name is the same as the book. It's a tattoo on my brain.
And I believe we're going to be able to share with the audience a preview of that as well in your email that you'll get probably by Friday. We're running out of time, but Marianne, I want you to read an excerpt from your book. And I just want to thank all of you so much for sharing your story. And I think we should do this again. Maybe we have a new club.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds great.
Go ahead and share, Marianne. But again, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is from the prologue to Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story. This was inspired by people that I met in my work. While night settled on Blue Hydrangeas, Jack and Sarah lay nestled on the couch, wrapped in a hand-knit afghan and clinging to each other as silent as stones. The lights were out. A crackling fire lit the room, and shadows danced on the walls. He cradled her in his arms and stared into space, detached. She focused on the fire, unyielding in his embrace, so far away. The bark he had put on the CD player had long ended. Outside, the first snowfall of winter blanketed Cape Cod. He had done all he could to make this evening the same as any other, but this god-awful quiet made everything seem so wrong. After 45 years of marriage, it wouldn't have surprised him if they had run out of things to say, but not a day ended without some new insight or tidbit of information passing between them. They shared everything, their deepest fears, their most private thoughts. Tonight, there was nothing, just this palpable silence as they ruminated separately on their visit to Dr. Fallon and the horrifying news he had given them. Jack pondered the same troublesome thoughts over and over, making no progress in absorbing the doctor's diagnosis. He knew enough about Alzheimer's to fill him with fear, a fear he had not experienced since his days as a medic in World War II. Back then, he had lived in anticipation of the next strike, the next slew of casualties. He could not sleep, he could not eat. Uncertainty consumed every moment. Sarah's Alzheimer's filled him with the same fear and anxiety. He did not know what to expect or when or how bad it would be. Some situations defy words, and there were no words, no phony reassurances to make this right. If there were, he could not pretend to know them.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you so much. And we definitely will reconnect. I would love to be able to do this again.
Yeah.
Please share the webinar to our audience with friends and family and buy these books. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony.
Hi, I'm Jean Lee from All's Authors. All the resources we offer at allsauthors.com, including this podcast, are brought to you free of charge, and our authors incur no expense for inclusion. Our management team is a dedicated group of passionate volunteers who earn no financial compensation. But to continue our mission to provide valuable resources to dementia caregivers, we need the support of listeners like you. If you'd like to support us, please make a donation at allsauthors.com/donate. We are a 501c3 organization. Remember, you are not alone.